Welcome to the Fearlessly Authentic Sash and Soul podcast. In each episode, we'll explore the power of embracing authenticity with a winning mindset and overall well-being to help you navigate life and the pageant world with confidence and resilience. I'm Rayanna Johnson, former Miss Wisconsin and founder of Fearlessly Authentic Coaching. So let's dive in. Welcome to Sash and Soul. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sash and Soul. I feel like I say this every time, but you guys, I'm so excited. I'm so excited because we have a brand new series that we are officially launching. This is the debut episode of the Crowned and Candid series. This is a special Sash and Soul series that is all about pulling back the curtain on the state title holder experience to offer something that we rarely get in pageantry, which is real talk from real women in the role right now. So we're going to have candid conversations with current title holders. And so we can give you the most honest, unfiltered look at what it really means to wear the crown, not just the stage photos and the social media highlights, but the behind the scenes work, the emotional growth, the leadership challenges, and of course, all of the unexpected lessons that are going to come with the job. So this series of Crowned and Candid is all about education and preparation. As a coach, I work with women all the time that are looking to aspire to be the state or national title holder. And so we get a lot of ideas in our head of what that actually looks like, and perfectionism seems to creep in. And we put the title holder up on a pedestal like it's something impossible to achieve. And so I want to pull back the curtains on that so that you can see this is attainable, this is realistic, and it's a matter of working really hard to hone in on your skills so that when you get the job, if you are blessed with the job, you can do the best at that job, but not perfectly, because none of us are. So we're going to dive into that today with our very first Crowned and Candid guest. This is Miss Montana 2024, Kaylee Wolfensberger. And I ask each of my guests really what they want the audience to hear from them. And so just before I give her the mic here, here's what she said. She wants to make sure all of you understand that being a title holder is so much more than putting on a dress and walking across the stage. It takes strength, it takes resilience, and it takes dedication. So I'm really excited to hear Kaylee's story today and to bring that to light for all of you as well. Kaylee, hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so glad you're here. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself outside of pageantry? Give us a little bit of a rundown of who you are, how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, well, my name's Kaylee Wolfensberger. I'm Miss Montana 2024. I am currently attending college at Montana State University, where I'm studying business marketing and getting a minor in small business and entrepreneurship. And I really want to work in the professional sports industry, hopefully the NFL, maybe focusing on athlete representation or promotion, or leaning more into the community relations side. I've had experience in both this year, and I really like both. So I'm really excited to step into that. And after I give up my crown, to focus on graduating college and stepping into that. I'm 20 years old. I grew up a competitive dancer and playing the piano. So I was always looking for ways to kind of showcase my talents. And that's kind of why I stepped into pageantry. I also grew up watching my mom volunteer in the Miss America system, helping at the local and state levels. And I never foresaw myself being a state title holder and going to Miss America. I competed once when I was young and it was not great. And I kind of gave up on that idea. And then this year was my first time competing in Miss. And what sparked it is I've just always wanted to do something bigger than myself. And I think that pageantry is a great way for you to get your foot in the door in professional and personal relations and aspects. So that's kind of what sparked it for me.
Yeah, I love that sentiment, that idea of like being part of something so much bigger than yourself, because I'm sure we'll talk about it today. But like a common theme lately for me in conversations with my clients has been like, this isn't about you. This is about the bigger picture. This is about the service that you're providing and what you can bring to the table to influence something on a greater scale, on a greater level. So I love that sentiment. I definitely lived by that when I was competing too. So, okay, let's rewind to crowning night, Miss Montana 2024. What was going through your mind that night?
I did not think I was going to win. I think a lot of people say that, but I genuinely did not think I was going to win. I signed up to compete in my state pageant because we don't do locals here in Montana 2 months before state happened. And I had a lot of self doubt and thinking that I was too young to be competitive in the Miss category. But I truly believe the best way to get better at something is to just do it. So why not compete and get better and hopefully work up to having the state title was my thought. So before crowning, I was writing my thank you cards to my director saying, thanks so much. I'm excited to come back next year. Fully did not expect it. And then when they were handing out awards, I had won two of the preliminary awards. And I was like, oh, wait, okay, maybe I did a little better than I thought. Maybe I'm going to actually place, do a little better. And then it just kept ticking down. And I knew that I had to place. So I knew that there was a possibility. So my mind was going crazy during the crowning moment. But afterwards, I just looked for my mom in the crowd because this is kind of something that we've always done together. And it was just crazy to have won the state title and get to like have that moment with my mom that we were going to Miss America. So
Yeah, isn't that the craziest realization after the crown and sash are placed on your head? Like that moment, you're like, oh man, the next step is Miss America.
yeah,
This is crazy. So, in hindsight, do you think that, like, how do you think that influenced your performance at competition? This idea that like you were going to do it for the practice and come back the next year with, intentions of really going for the crown.
I still wanted to portray the best version of myself on stage. So I still worked really hard because you don't compete because you don't want to win. You know you want to win. So I competed like I wanted to win, but I didn't have fear of not winning and feeling disappointed with myself because I knew that I had 8 more years to compete if I wanted to. And this was all about building myself into a better person. And actually, that night, I didn't do super well with my onstage question, and my talent was subpar, in my opinion. And so when we did evening gown and fitness, I just was like, just have fun. Like, this is the most fun part of competition. I just get to be myself and bring the energy. And those were the two preliminaries that I ended up winning because I had taken the fear out of it at that point and just told myself to make the most of the experience. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. So, um, what was your interview like at state?
I love interview. Interview is my favorite portion of competition. And I feel really confident in current events and talking about my community service initiative, talking about myself, just everything in general. So I thought that my interview went really well. This was probably the most political interview that I had ever had, but I'm someone who thinks I do well with political questions. So I walked out of the interview room pretty proud of myself and feeling pretty confident. The only question that I was like, oh my goodness, I bombed that is they asked me to tell them a joke. And I'm not like a have a joke in my pocket kind of girl. I consider myself pretty witty, like can think on the fly like that, but I did not have a joke in my pocket. So that was the only thing that I think I was really disappointed about in my state interview.
Well, it obviously didn't matter. I mean, the judges look at the entirety of their experience with you in that interview room, not just one question. And so you must have handled yourself really well, even if you felt like you didn't like have the answer for the question, because honestly, that's what counts. They're not going to remember specifically what you say. They're going to remember like how you made them feel and what the energy was like in that room and how you handled yourself. So it obviously worked. Okay, there is so much growth in your year as a state title holder, as a title holder in any capacity at any level. So, can you describe who you were at the start of your year and how would you describe who you are now?
Oh, this is a loaded question for sure. Um, I've actually been talking to a lot of girls recently, and this has come up a little bit. Is they're like, you're just so confident and so extroverted. I just don't feel like I'm that type of girl. I don't think I could ever compete in pageantry. And with every girl that has said that, I say I'm a very confident version of myself now, but this is not who I was a year ago. when I won Miss Montana a little less than a year ago. I think that I've had so much growth in myself. I am more confident than ever on my opinions and what I want to do after I graduate college, who I want to be, and my values. And I think that when I was going into Miss Montana, I was really nervous. I thought I was really young, not experienced enough, didn't have enough education under my belt, didn't have enough community service under my belt. And I just had a lot of self doubt. And by the time I went to Miss America, I knew that I was portraying the best version of myself I possibly could in that moment. And that's what I've tried to do even after Miss America is display the best version of myself in every appearance, in every service activity, in anything I do as Kaylee and anything I do as Miss Montana. So I think the biggest thing is that I've grown in my confidence in myself.
How would you describe showing up as at your best? Because I think we hear that a lot, right? Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to show up as myself. I'm going to show up as the best version of myself. But what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think that it's really rooted in being confident in what you're bringing to the table, which can be really hard in pageantry. It's really hard to go down that rabbit hole of comparison to the other delegates within the system. And at Miss America, I really had to focus on what I was bringing to the table, what I could do as Miss America, what I was doing as Miss Montana, not what so and so was doing in any portion of competition. So when I think about being my best self and what that meant for me is I knew that I had practiced my piano piece as much as I could to perform for talent. I knew that I had done as many mock interviews as possible to be solid in what I was going to say in that interview room. And I just had to keep going back to, you're prepared for what you bring to the table. Don't compare yourself to someone else in this competition and try to be above or at the same level as them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, let's going back to the start of your year again.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think the job of Miss Montana would look like? And what was different once you got into it?
Oh my goodness. All the things that I thought would be part of Miss Montana are definitely there, but there's things that you don't realize are there. And I think that Montana and several states over in the Midwest, pageantry is much different over here than it is in other states. And I was prepared for that, but I don't think I was prepared enough. So you hear a lot about you have a lot of sponsors, a lot of financial help, a lot of people in your corner. But in a rural state where there's not a big population, it's actually really hard to get sponsors. It's really hard to get financial help. And I don't know if I was necessarily prepared for how much work it was going to be on my own. And I don't think that's everyone's experience because not all states are the same. But I think that there's definitely a misconception with smaller states that we have the same amount of support that other states do.
So, have you found any tactics that have worked and what hasn't worked when it comes to finding that support?
I think that people, especially in Montana, value someone who's authentic and real. They don't want a pageant patty. They don't want you to put on this glamorous face, outfit, and portray a different version of yourself. What I have found is most effective is being the true Montana girl that I am and connecting with people on that level because that's what they want to see. They want to see that I'm just one of them. I'm just doing something big. That's been the biggest thing to help me connect with people and create those relationships.
Yeah, and I think the thing we all need to remember about authenticity and truly being ourselves is that it just comes down to letting go of what we think other people think of us or what we think other people are looking for in us. Like, I was talking to someone the other day about value and how like we we kind of determine what value we bring to the table based off of what we're passionate about, what we're skilled at, where our intellect lies, where our talents lie. And I think so often in pageantry, we get caught up in worrying about whether or not the judges are going to see those things as valuable. And that carries over into being the title holder as well, that we get concerned that the people that we're around with the crown and sash on are going to have some expectation of us. But as soon as we can drop our concerns about what other people may or may not expect of us, that's when the shield comes down and we just get to be ourselves. Would you say
Mhm.
that that was a lot of your experience too?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you struggle so hard as a title holder with comparison. And I compared myself to former Miss Montanas. I compared myself to other title holders, and it's just self destructive. And it wasn't getting me any farther. So it's so important to just be candid and be yourself. And that's what's going to make your connections.
It's so scary to be candid, though. Why do you think it's so scary for us to be candid sometimes?
I think pageantry has a really long history of portraying a very glamorous and polished person. Oh my goodness, glamorous and polished person. And I just don't think that's the case. We are regular people at the end of the day. I'm a student going to school. I have a job and I miss Montana. But I think that that stigma comes from a really long line of perfect women in the media. And not that you're not perfect, that's where we're getting things mixed up. And I think it's so hard to be candid in pageantry because you think that people want a perfect, polished version of yourself. And that's just not the case. They want to see an authentic girl, they want to see the girl next door. I think of Abby Stockard, our Miss America right now. She is the sweetest human. And I think that comes across. And I think that's why she won, is because she shows that authenticity and she shows that she's just America's girl.
Mhm. I don't think authenticity is something you even have to try to do. It's something that you are able to just uncover when you let go of these other expectations and theories about what perfect looks like or what other people are looking for. 100%. Was there a moment early on in your year that it hit you that this was real life for you for 365 days?
Um, Maybe. Yes and no.
Okay.
I think that I did a pretty good job at balancing my life enough. But when I was preparing for Miss America, obviously I sacrificed a lot. I sacrificed time with friends, I sacrificed a social life, lots of different things. And there would be nights where I would come home from a day of appearances and then I had to go to school and then go to work and then come home and go to the gym and practice piano. And I would just lay in bed exhausted because I want to do so well as Miss Montana. But at the end of the day, I'm also a human. I'm tired. And I think those nights I was like, oh my gosh, like this is life. And
Mhm.
you're exhausted, but it's also you're so happy because you're like, this is such a full day. But I think that preparing for Miss America, there were lots of times that I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a busy year.
Yeah. Would you do anything differently?
I think that I would have asked for help more. I think that a lot of women in pageantry are really focused on being a very strong and confident woman. And I think sometimes it's hard to be vulnerable when you're struggling being a title holder, especially a state title holder, because you don't want people to think you're not grateful. You don't want people to think that you're not worthy of the title. And asking for help kind of feels like a cop out. And I think that I struggled with that mindset a lot leading up to Miss America. I wish that I had just told like my board, my mom, my friends a little more. I just need help with this. Like, please help me with this, and this. And I think that I would have felt a lot better.
Would you mind sharing, like, if you can think of any of the specific things that you wish you would have asked for help for? Because I have a very similar experience when I was going to Miss America for like, as you're talking, I'm like nodding my head vigorously because like verbatim, like, yes, that was me thinking that I
Mhm.
needed to have it all together, at least from the outside looking in. And so, I've done some reflection on like, what did I actually need help with that people could have helped me with? And do you have an idea for you of like looking back, what those specific areas would be?
One that's kind of specific to where I live, the region of where I live in Montana, is everything is like an hour and a half apart. Every city that I would drive to is an hour and a half apart, and we don't have travel companions. So I just always was really exhausted driving myself. I was really exhausted trying to ask strangers, like, hey, can you take this picture just so you would have something to post on social media? And I think that people don't realize that that is exhausting to try and think of how you're going to get somewhere by yourself and then how you're going to make sure you get content to post in an era where that's so important and there's no one to do it for you. And I wish that I would have just been more open with my friends, like, can you please come with me to this event and just take pictures for me? I think that that would have taken a huge load off my shoulders because I think that it caused me a lot of stress to do everything on my own. A little more targeted to kind of pageantry in general. I was exhausted looking for outfits for Miss America. I wish that I had just asked for more help in that area, been like, can you please find me a tea party dress? Like, you look at so many things and eventually it's so exhausting. So I wish that I would have just asked for people help to pick out my wardrobe.
So what I'm hearing from you is just the mental load
Mm-hmm.
that like, and I think that's a difficult area to ask for help in, because how is somebody going to help you unload, that mental weight that you carry of all the responsibilities and the managing your time and the logistics of getting to where you need to be and doing what you need to do when you're there, and purchasing all the outfits that you need and staying on top of it. That's a really difficult thing to navigate. Like, how do you ask for help in those areas? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough for sure.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I think that you just don't think about. Like, how would you mentally
Mm-hmm.
prepare for that type of an experience? But it does exist. And so I think the message that, everyone could take away from that is understand that that's normal, and that so many women experience that on their way to any level of competition, but especially going to Miss America. And this year, for the new state title holders that are going to be going to Miss America in like 2 to 3 months after they're
Mm-hmm.
crowned, understand that what you're going through is normal. And so try to normalize and validate what you're experiencing. And yeah, do find ways to try and ask for help in those spaces. Um, for sure. So, how did preparing for Miss America differ from your prep for Miss Montana?
When I was preparing for Miss Montana, obviously, like I said before, I wasn't necessarily expecting to win, but I was trying to portray the best version of myself in those moments. So I was working hard when I competed for state, but kind of my thought was, oh, next year I'll just do a better piano piece, or next year I'll pick out a better dress. Not that what I brought to the stage was subpar, like not worthy of a stage talent or worthy of a stage dress, but I just had that idea of, oh, I'll just do better next year. Well, obviously that that wasn't the case, and I was like, okay, well, we have to do better for Miss America now. Um, so the prep picked up quite a bit. I chose a much more difficult song to play at Miss America, so my talent prep was insane. I was practicing anywhere from an hour to 2 hours a day on my piano piece, and then doing mock interviews whenever I could. And on top of it, all of this, I was going to school and working a job because in the Montana organization, we don't have the funding to pay me enough to not have a job. So
Right.
I had to work so I could go to Miss America. Granted, I had a lot of help from my parents, and I'm forever grateful for that. But I had to pick up some of the slack, and that's not the case with everyone. So that was a completely different experience against from state as well. But I think the biggest thing that was different is I knew that this was my once in a lifetime chance. You only get to compete at Miss America once. So I was giving everything I had to my prep because even if I didn't win, I didn't want to feel like I lacked in any area of competition.
what were the biggest, like what were the biggest lessons or unexpected challenges that you encountered competing for Miss America?
Oh, um, not necessarily that this was at Miss America, but I was really encouraged not to play a specific piano piece that I really wanted to play at Miss America. I was told that it was too slow, too boring, and I was highly advised against it. And I picked a song that I knew was going to challenge me a lot. Technically, I play Great Balls of Fire. It's very fast, it's very upbeat, and I play piano for 12 years, and I've never been super great at upbeat piano pieces. But against my better judgment, I chose to play that song. And I wish that I wouldn't have. I wish that I would have stuck to what I knew. And unfortunately, at Miss America, the nerves got the better of me. And I think that my lack of confidence in my piano skills got the better of me. And I messed up my talent at Miss America. And like that was just heart wrenching to practice that for so many hours and not perform the way I wanted to perform. So I think that that was a huge mishap on my part at Miss America and something I was not expecting to happen.
Mm-hmm. I had a similar experience, not that someone told me to do something different, but I did not have a good interview at Miss America. And so that feeling of like this is your one and only chance,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's done, and it just wasn't what you had imagined it to be and wanted it to be is really heartbreaking. So how did you handle the emotional like letdown or aftermath after coming home from Miss America now that it's like done?
Um, when people bring it up, it definitely still hurts in the heart a little bit. But something really cool that happened that I think helps me feel a little better about this situation. So Nikki Six, he's part of the band Motley Crue, was at Miss America. His wife is Courtney Six. She does the flowers for Miss America. She's Bouquet Box, a sponsor that they have. And I actually ended up running into her at the expo and I had my sash on. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, like I loved your talent." And I was like, "Oh, like I just was really disappointed in myself. I don't think that I played how I wanted to play. I messed up pretty bad." And she was like, "But me and my husband were so impressed. You picked it right back up." And that's like a great attribute of a true musician. And I was like, "Okay, well, you know what? If one of the greatest musicians of all time thinks that I picked up and showed somewhat of a true musician, then okay, I'll take it." Because it was a huge mess up for me. And at first I was like, okay, well, I just messed up one of the biggest songs in rock and roll in front of music legend Nikki Sixx, but I'll take it. And they loved my outfit and my hair. I've gotten so many compliments from tons of different people about my outfit and my hair for talent. Um, so, there's little things that I was like, okay, like, you know what? Maybe I messed up the song. I would have liked to play the song better, but at least people loved something about it. So that's kind of just the attitude I have to have. You can't dwell on it. You can't sit here and pick yourself apart for not performing the way you wanted to perform. Because let's remember, like, you just went to Miss America. You got that far. Be proud of getting that far.
That's really hard though. That was really hard for me after coming back from Miss America too. Was it very much like I felt this, I don't know, expectation that I was just supposed to be grateful and happy that I was there, but I was also grieving. I was also
Mm-hmm.
like, it was a very push and pull. And so I think for you and for anyone that might be experiencing that similar, like that letdown or that pang of heartache when someone brings it up, when this is a goal that you worked so hard for and now you'll never be able to go after it again. I think what I have learned in the last decade, it's been a decade since I competed, is that you get to live in the and. You get to be very proud of getting there and being there and the honor that that is and making history. and you get to grieve the loss of this dream that you'll never get to go after again. I think that's really important. But I really appreciate you sharing that because I think that that's something that we from the outside really don't see. You come back from Miss America, you pick up where you left off as a state title holder, you keep doing appearances, we see all your stuff on social media, and we just don't always think about, like, unless you've been there, you don't necessarily think about kind of the roller coaster of processing that happens after you get back from that once in a lifetime experience. So I
Mhm.
really appreciate you being candid about that.
Yeah, I think it's really hard, like you said, for people from the outside to see that and to see the pure exhaustion that you feel after you get home from Miss America. Like, yes, it's a crazy week, but you just worked for months for this. And I think that I definitely had comments. People were like, "Well, you're not really doing appearances and you've been back for a week." Granted, yes, like I should be doing appearances, but let's remember, like, I've been working so hard for this moment. I have, like you said, time to grieve the fact that it didn't work out the way I wanted to. And like, let me rest for a minute. Let me decompress because that's huge. And I also don't want to go out and do appearances when I'm not ready to do it. I'm not going to go portray myself in a way that's not who I am. This exhausted, beat down version of myself. So,
So you took some time to rest, just a
mhm.
beat. How was it getting back out there then after that?
Ooh, um, it was hard. I think that for probably the first month, I really struggled with, okay, well, kind of what am I supposed to do? I'm still supposed to do my service initiative, but I'm supposed to try and recruit new girls and build the program. And I just don't think that I really knew what direction I wanted to take the rest of my year for a really long time. I think that I just tried to jump back in, but I think that I needed to maybe reevaluate my goals after um, nationals was done. And I think that girls also have a hard time doing that after state is done, reevaluating what you want the rest of your year to look like. So I think that I struggled there quite a bit.
Yeah. We talk about in preparation. I don't know if you did much of this before Miss Montana, but like for me, when I was preparing and what I work with my clients on too, is like, what's your game plan? What's your 30, 60, 90? What are your quarterly goals for your year? And really ironing that out because once you get back from Miss America, it's like, all right, the world is your oyster, so to speak. The year is your oyster. What are you going to do with it? And having some level of idea, some kind of a plan. But also like after processing and all of that and figuring out like how will I make the most out of this last for you 6 months, I believe, right? About 6 months
Yeah.
after Miss America. And for me, it was 9 months because I competed in September. And now the next class will also be competing in September and they'll have 9 months left. So I think that preparation time and the mindset building up to Miss America is incredibly important because that's such a huge highlight of your year. But then planning for the rest of that and the whirlwind of, okay, where do I go from here? What do I do next?
Mhm.
So what do you feel like you have really accomplished since coming back from Miss America? What are you really proud of for your year?
I'm really proud of the image I portrayed for Montana at Miss America. I've had a lot of compliments and comments of how well I represented our state. And that's huge for me because we're a small state, we're a struggling pageant state. Um, it's hard to recruit girls, but we have had a huge jump in numbers this year. And I do believe that a lot of that has come from my presence on social media, specifically during Miss America Week, highlighting what a wonderful experience this is and getting girls engaged that way. And then also making those one on one connections with girls, I think has been really valuable. And I'm really proud of myself for that.
Yeah, that is really great. What do you think has kept girls from competing in Montana?
I just don't think that we have had enough FaceTime necessarily.
Mm,
I don't think that people really know what pageantry is. So that's why I think it was so important for me to be on social media so heavily this year because we're in a digital age. It's how people get a lot of their information. So I was portraying not only a true Montana girl, but also Miss Montana and Miss America and how amazing this experience can be. And I think that that's what really stood out.
Yeah. Okay. So since we're kind of diving into the business side and the work of the title holder, how involved were you in like the professional aspects of your role, like the booking and the booking fees or the appearance fees or scheduling, like all the things? Like how involved were you in all of that?
I did it all myself.
Okay.
I think that again, this is something that comes from being from a smaller pageant state. We don't have a booking agent. We don't have a travel companion. We have a very small board. And unfortunately, during my year, my board went through a lot of changes. We have a new executive director as of recently. So I was dealing with a board that was trying to change and revamp all while I was trying to be Miss Montana. And I booked every appearance myself. I don't get paid for my appearances. I
Okay.
We just don't live in a state where people really put a value on spending money for Miss Montana to be there. Some people do. I'll say that I've been paid for one appearance and they reached out to me. And then I have also been reached out to again, and they're paying for my travel expenses. So those are the only two appearances that I have had any compensation for. And I don't think people understand that's how our smaller states work. So I was heavily involved in the business side of being Miss Montana. But yes, it was hard, but I also am really grateful because I'm a business student and I want to work in business. So I think this has been a huge eye because I handled the marketing side of myself, the booking side, some of the financial side, and I did have a board who helped me, fill out my paperwork and get my copyright and that sort of situation. But when it came down to just being Miss Montana, I did it all myself.
How did you look for appearances and go about booking yourself for those appearances to stay busy?
This has been a really hard part of my year is getting the confidence to send people a message asking if you can be at their event. And I like that's been so hard for me because it's like, can I come to this event? Can I come be present for this? And you feel awkward asking and it's really hard. But if I want the program to grow, I had to do it. So that was hard to navigate. And I really tried to put more of an emphasis on service. So I wasn't just saying, "Hey, can I like come attend this event for free?" I was saying like, "Hey, can I come help out at this event?" So most of the events I've done, I'm doing some form of service. I'm not just like there for the face value. I'm like helping set up, helping take down, working with kids, something along those lines.
Providing more value to the event itself, which, yeah, is definitely powerful. And I think a lot of people, it depends on the state, of course, as you're mentioning, like each state kind of has a different unique culture to things. But I think, were you surprised at how many people were like, oh my gosh, we'd love to have you as Miss Montana? Did that help boost your confidence at all?
Yeah, when people asked like for me to come to things or mention me coming to things, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love to do that. Like, thank you for asking me and not making me ask you. So I think that definitely boosted my confidence and also just helped me feel a little more confident when I did have to ask to be at things because when I went to those events that I asked, I would make those connections and have people ask me. So
How did you get past feelings of it being like personal, that they didn't want you there if you were ever denied?
honestly, I can't honestly say that I am over it. Sometimes when people are like, "Oh no, like we're fine," like it is kind of like hurtful. They're not meaning to be hurtful, but they just
Right.
don't. They're like it's kind of not that kind of event or whatever it is. So I wouldn't say that I'm over it.
That's fair and so honest and real. And I appreciate that so much. So, were you given any kind of unexpected business responsibilities? Like, did you expect all of that? Did you get any unexpected responsibilities that you kind of had to learn as you went?
I didn't expect to be booking so many appearances on my own. And I think that is what contributed heavily to my exhaustion that we talked about earlier leading up to Miss America because I was booking my own appearances, going to them by myself, and then doing everything else on top of it. So I think that contributed a lot to my exhaustion.
Were you expected to book this many appearances, or was this something that you wanted to do?
No, I have an appearance requirement in my contract that I had to meet. So when I signed my contract, I was expecting a little bit more help to meet that expectation. So that was definitely hard. But like I said earlier, we went through a lot of changes this year. And so I can't completely blame it on one person or anything like that. But I just hope that for the next title holder, I have laid that foundation and our new board is ready to continue to build on that foundation.
Can you share it all as much as you're comfortable about how you handled any kind of miscommunication or conflict resolution with the board of directors as all these changes were going on?
I was really lucky to have some very awesome people in my corner. And one of those was my mom. And when things went wrong, I called my mom a lot. And she was really someone who helped talk me down when I was upset and helped me lay out a plan of how to approach things differently. I'm also someone that really believes in having honest communication. So I don't want it sugar coated. I don't sugarcoat things when I have a problem. And I think that when I talked to my board, I was very honest. I said, I need more help with this, or I would like to see this. And I just was upfront. And I think that's the best way to handle it is doing so with grace and doing so with honesty.
Let's segue into your community service initiative. I'm excited to hear more about it. So, can you tell us about what your community service initiative and like how it even evolved throughout your reign, if at all?
Yeah, so my community service initiative is called Healing Harmonies, and it's about providing underfunded youth with access to music education. And it stems from my personal experience of using music to cope with a very traumatic event that I dealt with at a young age. And music is what brought me out of my funk. I struggled really hard with feeling emotions after this event. And when I sat at the piano, that's when things started to click for me and heal for me. And I just knew that was so important. So it kind of stems from that story, but also in connection with children living in impoverished communities. Children living in poverty are 9 times more likely to experience trauma than their wealthier peers. So I knew that there was a need for assistance in that area, especially in my own community. Bozeman, Montana has a poverty rate of 14.7%, which is higher than the state and the national rate. So I knew when I developed my community service initiative that I wanted it to be very um, forward and really something that I could take initiative on. So that's why I ended up segueing into providing music for underfunded youth because that's what healed me when I dealt with a traumatic experience. So it's very personal to me, and I'm just really grateful that I've had the opportunity to communicate that with the Montana community nationally. But I think that throughout my year, when I developed this, when I was a local title holder, it's obviously come a very long way. And I think that I focused a lot on instilling a love for music with children this year. But I think that the root of what I wanted to do was provide more access to that music education, which kind of stems more from being in contact with adults and the funding side of things. So it's definitely evolved in that way. I still work with kids very like often. I love to do my music activities with kids, but I also had to tap more into dealing with like schools and things like that and trying to get adults to understand the importance of funding our music education system.
How much of your time as Miss Montana, in terms of appearances and the work that you were doing behind the scenes, was dedicated to your CSI versus um, general appearances?
I would say that it was heavily towards my CSI. So I actually worked really hard to develop a partnership with Head Start, which is a government organization. And it's essentially about preparing kids for success in school and specifically for people and families who are living below the poverty line. So I spent a lot of my year establishing that partnership and then fulfilling that partnership, visiting Head Starts across Montana and also just schools in general. Montana is a very rural state. We have a lot of underfunded communities. So I was really trying to tap into those communities and provide them with that access to music education, instilling that love for music in children. And it's been so rewarding. I wouldn't trade any of my community service appearance initiatives for something more glamorous, like speaking at a gala or anything like that. Obviously, I love those appearances, but I'm someone who really feels like the crown and my mission is rooted in service of above all things. Service style, scholarship, and success. I love them all, but I am the most attached to the service point of the crown. So it's just been really awesome to be able to be in those communities and serve those communities, especially when these are people who don't get to see Miss Montana a lot. They're not people who have quote unquote quote important people come into their town. So it's a really big deal for them to see Miss Montana. And I think that when I go to these communities sometimes, and I think this is really common for all title holders, you're just excited to be there and you're doing your job, but you forget that this might be the only interaction these kids have with a title holder. So for you, yes, you're just meeting with a classroom, but there's a little girl in there who's going to remember the day she met Miss Montana forever. And I just have loved that I've gotten to expand my community service initiative throughout the state.
You think of one particular, especially meaningful experience that you had?
Yeah. I was talking to a school one day, a group of students, and there was a kid who was just not paying attention. He dealt with kind of a learning disorder. He didn't want really anything to do with me, and I was really struggling. This was one of my first appearances. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not connecting with this child? What can I do better? And I just continued to work and do my thing. And like I said, I focus a lot on the music. So when I started playing music and doing the activity, I watched this student's demeanor soften, which was really special. And then I watched him kind of calm down and tap into what I was saying a little bit more. And I just felt a lot more confident. And then when I got up to leave, I was telling everyone goodbye. He caught me at the door and he handed me a paper and he had drawn a picture of me. So maybe in that moment, I didn't feel like I was connecting with this student. I didn't feel like I was doing something right. But at the end of the day, I left an impact. And I think that's just super special.
Those behind the scenes moments that we'll never be able to see because you can't portray that on social media. It's something that you
Mm-hmm.
have to experience for yourself. On the other side of it, was there a failure that you felt or a setback during your year that ended up being a turning point for you?
Like I said, when I failed at my piano piece, that was kind of like a really big setback, especially at Miss America. I had to really revamp myself very quickly because I had to compete, in 2 days after that. But I think that another failure that really did year is I was trying really hard to build up our scholarship fund and actually get the universities, the two state universities in our state, to give a scholarship to whoever won Miss Montana. And I put a lot of time and effort into this. I mean, I had laid it all out, printed out documents. I felt like I was very organized. I made meetings with people. I met with them in person. I felt like I really portrayed an honest version of myself in the program. And one of the universities turned it down. And I was so disappointed that day. I had a really hard time just feeling motivated to do anything because I really wanted this to work out for the next title holder. So that felt like a really big setback for me. But I just had to remind myself that there's so much more I can do, and I needed to look for scholarship in other ways, and that's what I've been doing. So
Yeah. Those no's are so hard, but the thing that I want everyone to remember in like pageantry is like I think we put so much pressure on like getting all these things done during that year of service, but there's so much you can do afterwards as well. And in
Mhm.
many ways more because you won't have all the obligations and expectations of having that crown and sash on at the same time. There's so many ways that you can contribute long term that you started the foundation. You laid the groundwork for what could be a really significant scholarship opportunity in the future. And so that isn't necessarily a failure. Like it was just a not now, but maybe not never.
Yeah, absolutely.
What personal strengths did you discover or develop that you didn't realize that you had before during this year?
I have learned that I am very mentally tough, and I'm very proud of that. I had a lot of changes throughout my year, like we've talked about earlier. And there were times that I was really disappointed that this was happening during my year because you want this so bad. You get one shot at it. And to have this dream that you've had set in your heart not work out the way you thought it was going to is really hard. But I have learned to not only be more mentally tough, but that I am really strong in those situations. And I'm very composed. And I know that this has set me up for success in the future. But I think that it was something that I had to learn quickly. But I'm very grateful to have that skill now.
Yeah. What do you hope people remember most about your year?
I hope that when people think about me being Miss Montana, they see someone that propelled the program forward and did everything they could to do so. I don't ever want people to think about me being selfish or that I took the year to just brag about myself. I hope that people see the work that I put in to build our program because, yes, I wanted to be the Miss Montana that became Miss America, but it didn't happen. And you have to reroute your plan and decide how you're going to make an impact differently. And I hope that people remember that I grew the numbers of girls who signed up. I tried to grow our scholarship foundation. I brought a new era of pageantry to the Miss Montana pageant.
What have you learned that you know now that you wish you had known at the start of your year?
This experience is 100% about you. Don't let other people change the experience for you if that's not how you want your year to be. I think that in pageantry, it's really easy to conform to what other people want you to be. And I think it's great that you're doing this podcast series to show that people are living completely different lives than you think they're living. And for if you're a local title holder, a state title holder, a national title holder, whatever it is, being yourself and giving this experience what you think it deserves and being the title holder that you want to be is of the utmost importance. Don't conform to someone else's view of what you want they want you to be. I think that's something that I really hope girls see and that we move more towards in the future of pageantry.
Has your personal definition of success changed because of this experience?
Absolutely. I think that when I started, I definitely thought that if I didn't place at Miss America, that I would have been a failure. Hard with my board. I know that they really wanted me to place. They were like, "You're going to be our Miss Montana that gets in the top 10." Like, we just know it. We can feel it. And I felt so much pressure. Like, it was endearing for them to say that, but it also was so much pressure. And when I didn't do that, I had a really hard time recovering um, from that experience. But I just think it's so important to remember that you have other goals with what you're doing.
Yeah. All right. So your year of service is almost behind you. When do you give up the crown?
June 21st, very
Okay.
soon.
Yes. How are you approaching your life now that this year is coming to an end?
I'm to be completely honest, I'm really struggling with the life after the crown situation. Um, I'm not really surrounded by a ton of pageantry friends and family. I'm kind of one of the first people to really step into that. So I think I'm going to have a hard time expressing that feeling of loss after I give up my title. So I'm kind of already trying to prepare for that situation. But I know that there's so much more ahead for me. This opportunity has allowed me to put my foot in the door in so many areas and put my name in the mouths of really important people. And I'm really excited to graduate college, and I'm really excited to start working in professional sports. And I think that being Miss Montana has given me that opportunity. I've had the opportunity to speak with the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco Giants, among many other teams. And I'm just really excited that, you know, this opportunity has given me more opportunities, and I need to see it that way and not see it as I'm closing the door on something. I'm just starting a new chapter.
Very bittersweet, sometimes
Yeah.
feeling more bitter than sweet, especially for you when you thought that you would have many more years to be competing in this organization.
Yeah.
But I mean, after just this brief time getting to know you, I'm so thrilled for you. Like the best is yet to come. You have gained so much from this experience. It's so evident, and you've contributed so much through your year. That is evident as well, that wherever you go next is going to be extraordinary. Try not to compare yourself to what your sisters in your class of Miss America are doing. I struggled with that a lot. I think that's going to be my message to each and every one of you that I sit down with on Crowned and Candid, because that was difficult. It's still the highlight reel that we see on social media, but we had our 10-year reunion, class reunion in September. And it was so, just invigorating to talk to some of my sisters in my class and find out that they were struggling in such a similar way to me in that transition of, post title holder year. So it's very real, and we all experience it, but there's so much more to come for you, and I'm so excited to see that happen for you.
Thank you.
So what advice would you give to the next Miss Montana?
Oh, number one, ask for help when you need it. No one's going to judge you for asking for help. But also, I think this is going to be many girls' advice to the next title holder is to soak it all in. It goes so fast. And I wish that I had just taken the time to sit in those moments and really soak it all in when I was doing service or giving a speech or being on stage. I wish that I had just cherished that time a little bit more.
And what advice would you give her about preserving her own well-being?
Your well-being is above anything else in this situation. You have to remember that if you're not at your best, you're not portraying the best version of Miss Montana you could, or whatever your title is. So it's so important that you put your needs at the forefront in this situation. It's not selfish to make sure that you're in a good place.
And if she ever doubts herself, what words would you want her to hear from you?
Yeah, I think that I would say that self-doubt is normal and it's okay to feel those feelings. But remember that you did something that the judges saw of value, and they knew that you could represent our state. And I know that you can do it too.
When you think back on the season of your life, 5 to 10 years from now, what do you think that you're going to remember the most?
I think that I'm going to remember that I was 20 years old and I did some pretty amazing things. I'm the youngest member of the Miss Montana class. And I think that I want to remember that I was 20 years old and really cool. And I hope that my kids think that I'm really cool. And whoever looks at me, they're going to think, wow, she did some pretty amazing things.
One final word from you, my dear. What is your message to the Sash and Soul community today?
I think that it's important to remember that if you don't walk away with that crown, it is not a measure of your worth. Having a crown does not make you any more worthy of love and respect and of compassion and recognition. At the end of the day, it's just a crown. It is not putting any more value on the person that you are. So don't let the loss of a title affect you in that way, because you're worthy and loved and you're doing amazing things. One woman gets to wear the crown, but God saves the rest of us from it, is something that we say here in Montana, because it's an amazing opportunity, but it's also a tough situation to be in. So look at it from a different point of view.
I love that. I have never heard that before, and I'm going to remember that. So powerful.
Good.
Oh my gosh. Kaylee Wolfensberger, Miss Montana 2024. Thank you so much for sharing your candid thoughts, your experience, your passion with us, your insights. This was a really beautiful conversation, and I really appreciate your time and the love that you poured into everything that you said. So thank you so much. Wishing you the very best and the rest of your year, just the next 8 weeks, maybe. I think it's 2 months. It's wrapping up quickly. Soak it all in, like you said, and be proud of yourself. You certainly represented well, and I'm glad to have met you and had you on. So thank you again. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Sash and Soul, I will be back again very soon with another episode in this series of Crowned and Candid, and I will talk with you then. Bye. If you've been working so hard but still feel like something's missing, then I want to personally invite you to schedule a free coaching consultation. This is for you if you're tired of overthinking every detail. You're doing everything you can to prepare, practicing your walk, your talent, interview, refining your paperwork, and staying up late analyzing every possible outcome. You put in the work, but still question if you're doing enough or if you are enough. So in just one call, we'll talk through where you're at, what's been holding you back, and how you can start showing up fully prepared to win the title and actually do the job once you get it. If you're looking for more than just surface level prep, and you're ready to prepare with strategy, support, and confidence that actually lasts, I'd love to be part of your process. Head to the link in the show description to grab your spot, and I'll see you there.